The old man stood quietly at the edge of the massive stage, his hands folded in front of him, fingers rough and scarred from decades of labor. The bright lights of America's Got Talent shimmered above, reflecting off the polished floor, a world far removed from the dusty workshops and half-built houses where he had spent most of his life. His name was Ernesto Villanueva, a 67-year-old carpenter from a small village in the Philippines, and at that moment, he looked almost fragile beneath the weight of the enormous theater and the millions of eyes watching from around the world. Ernesto wore a simple button-down shirt, neatly pressed but clearly old, and a pair of worn leather shoes that had seen better days. He smiled shyly as the audience applauded, bowing his head slightly, not quite sure where to stand or what to do with his hands. The judges watched him with curiosity. Simon Cowell leaned back in his chair, eyebrows raised. He had seen thousands of auditions, singers, dancers, magicians, and dreamers of every kind. Another hopeful contestant, he thought, though something about this man felt different. Terry Crews stepped forward, microphone in hand, his booming voice warm and encouraging. He asked Ernesto where he was from and what he did for a living. Ernesto's accent was thick but understandable, his voice soft and humble as he explained that he was a carpenter. He had been working with wood since he was a teenager, learning the trade from his father, who learned it from his own father before him. When asked why he had come to America's Got Talent, Ernesto paused. His eyes shimmered slightly as he took a breath. He spoke about his late wife, Maria, who had passed away 5 years earlier after a long illness. She had loved music more than anything. In the evenings, after long days of work, she would sing while Ernesto fixed furniture or built small toys for their children. She always told him that his voice was beautiful, that he should sing for more people, but life had other plans. There were mouths to feed, school fees to pay, roofs to build. Dreams were something you postponed when survival came first. The judges listened closely now. Heidi Klum leaned forward, smiling gently. Sofia Vergara nodded, already emotionally invested. Simon watched in silence, arms crossed, but his expression had softened. Ernesto explained that after Maria's death, their children encouraged him to follow the dream he had buried for decades. They had secretly recorded him singing while he worked in his small workshop and posted the video online. The video spread quietly, touching hearts, until someone suggested he audition for America's Got Talent. He laughed at first, thinking it was impossible. A poor carpenter on one of the biggest stages in the world? But then he remembered Maria's voice telling him not to be afraid. Terry asked what song he would be singing. Ernesto smiled again, this time more confidently. He said it was a song his wife loved, one he sang to her during her final days. As the music began, the theater grew quiet. The first notes left Ernesto's mouth, and something shifted in the room. His voice was not flashy or technically perfect in the modern sense, but it was rich with emotion, textured by years of lived experience. It carried the weight of early mornings and late nights, of calloused hands and aching backs, of love, loss, and quiet perseverance. Every word felt sincere, as if he were not performing for judges or cameras, but singing directly to someone he loved deeply. The audience sat motionless, drawn into the story unfolding through his voice. Some closed their eyes. Others reached for tissues. The lyrics spoke of longing, of promises kept and broken by time, of hope that endures even when everything else fades. Ernesto's eyes glistened as he sang, and at one point his voice wavered, not from weakness, but from emotion too strong to contain. Simon Cowell, known for his sharp critiques and unflinching honesty, felt an unfamiliar tightness in his chest. He had heard countless singers pour their hearts out on stage, but this was different. This wasn't ambition-driven or rehearsed to impress. It was raw truth. He found himself thinking about his own life, his own regrets, the people he had loved and lost. He blinked, surprised to feel moisture in his eyes. When the song ended, there was a brief moment of stunned silence. Then the theater erupted. The audience rose to their feet in a thunderous standing ovation. Cheers echoed off the walls, applause rolling like waves. Ernesto stood frozen, overwhelmed, hands trembling as he bowed again and again, tears streaming down his face. The judges stood as well. Heidi clapped enthusiastically, wiping her eyes. Sophia placed a hand over her heart, visibly moved. Howie Mandel shook his head in disbelief, smiling widely. Simon remained standing, but he wasn't clapping at first. He was wiping his eyes. When the applause finally died down, Terry returned to the stage, beaming. He asked the judges for their comments. Heidi spoke first, telling Ernesto that his performance was beautiful and pure, that it felt like a gift from the heart. Sophia said she didn't understand every word, but she felt everything, and that was what mattered. Howie praised Ernesto's courage, saying it was never too late to follow your dreams. Then it was Simon's turn. The audience held its breath. Simon took a moment before speaking, his voice quieter than usual. He admitted that he often focused on perfection and marketability, but Ernesto had reminded him why music mattered in the first place. He said that Ernesto's performance wasn't just a song, it was a lifetime of love and sacrifice poured into a few minutes. He paused, swallowing hard, then said something that shocked everyone. "This is why we have this show," Simon said. "And this is why I'm proud to be sitting here." The crowd erupted again. Ernesto covered his mouth, tears flowing freely now. Then Simon stood fully upright and walked toward the center of the judges' table. He looked at Ernesto, smiled softly, and without another word, slammed his hand down on the golden buzzer. Golden confetti exploded from above, raining down like a dream made real. The lights flashed gold, the audience screamed, and Ernesto dropped to his knees, overwhelmed. Terry ran to him, lifting him up in a hug as the music swelled. Ernesto laughed and cried at the same time, unable to believe what was happening. Simon watched, his eyes still wet, nodding to himself. In that moment, the old Filipino carpenter was no longer defined by his age, his poverty, or the years he had spent unnoticed. He was a star, not because of fame, but because of the truth he carried in his voice. Back home in the Philippines, neighbors gathered around small televisions and phones, watching the broadcast with pride. People who had known Ernesto all his life, who had hired him to fix doors, build cabinets, repair roofs, cheered and cried as if he were family, because in many ways, he was. His children watched with hands over their mouths, tears streaming down their faces, knowing their mother would have been smiling. Ernesto's journey on the show continued, but no matter what happened next, that moment would live forever. It was proof that dreams do not expire, that talent can bloom at any age, and that sometimes, the quietest lives hold the most powerful stories. And somewhere beyond the lights and applause, in the space between memory and hope, Ernesto felt Maria's presence. He imagined her smiling, just as she always had, whispering the words she had told him so many years ago. "Sing, Ernesto. Let them hear your heart."